Hi, everybody. I'm Eugene Chen, Honeywell's product marketing offering manager for cybersecurity globally. And I'll be presenting today along with Carl Eshelman. Go ahead, say hi, Carl.
Hi, everyone. Carl Eshelman.
And Carl's director of technical sales for cyber and engineering within Cyber Insights. So today we're going to cover how to boost your OT cybersecurity to help prevent cyber attacks and downtime. And we'll be highlighting a new offering that we have to help you achieve this goal. So we'll go ahead and go right into it because we want to save as much time as we can for the demo. I'm going to cover three of the topics here, but don't worry, I'll try to shorten that as fast as and go as fast as I can, but still be understandable and save as much time as we can for Carl to run the demo. So we're going to cover the challenges you face today. We'll go over a little bit about what our new offering is and how the licensing works, and then we'll go right into the demo. So today, many of you face challenges. You've probably heard many cybersecurity pundits speak about, the dangers of cybersecurity. But I wanted to go out there. You can do this yourselves and do a quick search, like online, and see what is actually real, what is really affecting your peers on the market. And so when I did a quick pass of that, you could see here I'm showing 4 or 5 different attacks that occurred fairly recently. Probably the biggest one there is at the upper left, and that's the MGM or Caesar's Palace attack that happened a few months back towards the end of last year. And just in a short period of days, it affected that business globally, over $100 million lost, right? Just in a couple of days. And what the attacker did in this case, they spent several months on the network without exposing themselves. They were watching their target, which was Caesar's Palace MGM Resorts, and they just figured out the most vulnerable areas of the business. And then when they finally attacked, they attacked all the locations globally at once. It shut down gaming and revenue generation on the gaming floor, in the shops, affected access control for both their customers and for the business itself. So customers couldn't get into hotel rooms. They couldn't make purchases of merchandise. Think about that. Just in a couple of days, $100 million lost. What would that do to your business? Right. So this is the average cyber incident cost 140 million. This cost MGM Resorts 100 million. That does not include the cost to recover. Okay. And then the Clorox one, harder to read, but the Clorox company filed in their annual report, or an 8K, which is a incident report, which is now required by the SEC. When a cyber attack occurs that affects their business in a significant way, they put in their filing that it cost them like 40 to 60 cents a share in business, affected about one whole quarter's worth of revenue. That's significant. How many of your businesses can forego a quarter of your revenue for the year? Not go bankrupt, right? So these attacks are real. The cost is real. So you have to ask yourself, are you putting your site's safety at risk by not addressing the OT system safety and cybersecurity? So many of you have the IT lockdown, you have IT policies for your business networks, but how many of you are looking at your OT network? Do you know all the assets on your OT network? Do you know the state of those assets? Are they up to date and patched? And then what if you have malware? Many of you have policies for malware on the IT system, but you have policies in place on how to handle malware on the OT network. Do you even know if you're in compliance? I think I spoke to that a little bit on the Clorox Corporation, right? They made a filing up with the SEC, but how many of you know, maybe you've heard this, but you haven't implemented the policies yet? In December, the SEC made a rule change. Every publicly traded company, any company traded on US stock exchanges, New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, if you have a cyber attack that affects your business, you're now required to make a filing on either the 8K or 10K. So an incident report is an 8K, or the 10K annual report. It's got to go into your filing and made public. So do you have information? Do you know who to contact? Do you know how to make that filing? And are you able to show your CISO your cybersecurity posture for your facility or your fleet of facilities if you're managing more than one location? We can help you with that, right? Our solution can help you going forward So if you're not doing enough, if you're not sure if you're doing enough, we can help you understand all the assets on your network. And what we found is many of our customers, on average, we found that you have 30% more assets on your network than you realize or that you think that you do. And in my personal experience, what often happens is customers will spin up certain number of assets, especially wireless access points, wireless assets on the network for a particular project, and you forget about it. Business goes on, that project closes, but those accesses to the network and those devices on the network are still left open, which is now even worse. It's dangerous because they're unmanaged and it's a severe vulnerability to your systems. So that's how bad guys can get in, how they can access your network and place malware onto the system. Right. So some of these slides, like I said, I want to make sure we save time for the demo. I'll go through some of them so you can see them. Like for this one, the average dwell time on the system that was utilized in the Caesars MGM Studios attack, 270 days, 9 months. Attackers get on the network and they watch you. They find out what is most important in your system. What's the most effective way that they can attack you to get IP from you or to lock down your system for a ransomware attack? It's a long time. So how do you combat that? You want to be able to detect them as quickly as possible and thwart that attack. The faster you respond, the less cost it's going to be for your business. And then, of course, as I already spoke about, the SEC came out with new rulings, but there's also policies in place today. So we have ISO 27001, we have NERC for industrial or critical infrastructure. You have various different policies. You might even have your own corporate policy in place that you need to adhere to. And our solution helps you with that tracking over time, and Carl can show you that in the demonstration. And through the dashboard that we provide, we can now help you present to your business, to your CISO, the health of your site from a cybersecurity perspective. And then, of course, the reason why you want to use a managed service like what we offer today, or some kind of application, is because it's far and few between. There's not many guys like me and Carl who have both OT experience and IT experience. Right. So we have that solution for you. We can help you answer these questions. We can help with the biggest issues facing you today is not knowing what devices are on your network. So you have minimal cyber hygiene that's in place today on the OT side, and it's time consuming to manually go through all of that. We have a solution for you. What's that solution? It's Honeywell Forge Cybersecurity Plus for buildings. Within this portfolio of offering, we have Cyber Insights and Cyber Watch. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward here a little bit. Cyber Insights provides a dashboard to you. It's an appliance or device that sits on your network and sniffs all the traffic. Think like in the old days, in the movies, you'd see the guy climb the telephone pole and tap in 2 wires into the telephone line and listen to it. It's a solution like that. It's something that sits on the network, or if you're well-versed in IT systems, you might think of it as like a super wire shark, right? It gets on the system, it just listens. It looks at communication packets. It can do deep inspection. It does 2 things. It looks at those communication packets to understand what's being communicated. Is there a threat on the system? And it also looks at behavior patterns, both from the end user and device flow, traffic flow. So at a glance, you can see in the upper left, how many assets are on the network. If that increased for some reason or decreased for some reason, you immediately know, and you can do something about it, take some action. And then with the donut pie chart here in the center, you immediately know with the coloring, hey, I've got red there. Boom, I have a high critical threat in the system. I need to take a look at it. And then as Carl will show you, you can just simply click on that band of color and bring up this list of devices and what those threats are and start digging deeper. Okay, so that's Cyber Insights. At a glance, you can see the health of your site, your particular single site. And what Cyber Watch does, it's an add-on to Cyber Insights. Cyber Watch provides a dashboard. It takes the data from multiple Cyber Insights locations into a single dashboard. So you can have now a broader view of your entire portfolio, your campus, if you will, of multiple buildings, to see the health of those buildings of each site. And so we do that through clever licensing. We try to make it simple for you. we have developed something different from most of our competitors. Most competitors offer licensing per asset count or IP address. Well, what Honeywell's done, we've now licensed these different sites on small, medium, large definitions. So you can have a small site, and then when you want that site to be part of a CyberWatch, and we'll talk about a governance or governance solution, you just buy a connection license, and it's attached to the Cyber Insights license. So you can see this one, I have a small site that's got Cyber Insights, it's got a small watch license and a small governance license. Similarly, same thing for medium and large. You can now have these different size sites all tied into one system to CyberWatch. They buy their own connection system that scales properly financially with the license price that then ties into one overview. And so then if you have CyberWatch, the CyberWatch offers a faceplate view. So you can see here quickly, you can see, oh, green, green, red, red. So I have two sites, they're fine, there are no issues there. And then boom, I've got some issues here. And you can then take a look at the rest of the faceplate to see how many critical issues exist. Or if you want to jump right into it, you can click on this little button below that brings up the Cyber Insights overview panel. Again, Carl will dig into this a little bit more. I just want to give you a flavor of, like, at a glance, what you can see with the solution and determining of the health of it and managing your portfolio. And same thing with cyber governance, CyberWatch governance. This solution now measures each of your sites against the cyber policy that you've chosen. And so how do you do that with other companies? You'd have to then pay engineering fees to custom set up a policy to measure against. But with our solution, right out of the box, from a drop-down list that you can see right here, and again, Carl, if we ask him nicely, he'll be able to show that during the demo also. During the configuration process, you can just click a drop-down box and you choose which policy that you want to measure your sites against. And so you can choose from the ISO 27001, IEC 62443, which is another popular one, NERC if you have critical infrastructure. There's a little over half a dozen ones that are pre-canned, pre-built in, pre-configured into the solution. And now you can see how well your site measures against that policy. Does it in full compliance? Is it in partial compliance? And even better, you can choose a standard policy and then customize it. You might say, hey, only 70% of IEC 62443 really applies to my business. My IT policy for my corporate IT policy doesn't need 30% of that. So you can customize that and cut out that 30% that you don't want to measure against, and then make an effective policy for you that's customized. Okay, so with that, I want to roll into the demo, and let me stop sharing here so that Carl can then bring up the system and dig right into and show you exactly what the product looks like and how you might use it effectively for your business.
All right. Thank you very much, Eugene. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different tactic on the demo here than just talking about what we do. I want to talk about the outcome. And the outcome that we have, and we're going to hit on this very high level. We're taking a demo that I normally do in an hour to an hour and a half to talk about all the different nuances and things we can do, and tunneling this down into about 10 minutes. So it's going to be very high level and just talking about some of the things that we can do. But what I really want to focus on, again, is that outcome. And that outcome is identifying risk within your environment and identifying where you can have the biggest impact on mitigating that risk within your environment. So as we look at our sites, now we're looking at the CyberWatch, and this is a CyberWatch that has 9 sites in it. In our demo environment, only one of these sites is live, and this is the PCTF site. The other ones are just data that we have here to show you what it looks like having multiple sites. But what I want to point out is our risk score. And so if we had more live sites, we would have a risk score for each one of those sites. We can quickly identify which of our sites or which of our buildings within a campus or however we have this arranged has the highest risk. Where should we be focusing our attention? Where should I go and look? So in this case, we have our PCTF site, and we can look at this and we can actually track this over time to see, is our risk increasing, is it decreasing, what's happening with our risk. So let's go take a little bit closer look at this PCTF site. And so this is the Cyber Insights specifically for this PCTF site. And this is showing the specifics here. So here we have our risk score. Again, within this environment, we can look at our risk score. We can see exactly what our score is doing over time, again, within this environment. But that risk score is comprised of information from the environment. Specifically, it's a weighted average of the assets and so on within the environment. Of course, we have risk based on alerts. So we have our open alerts here that Eugene pointed out before. But which one of those should I be looking at first? Within this site alone, I have 183, or excuse me, I have um, uh, several hundred alerts, 182 open alerts within this environment, and 7 of those are critical. Which one should I be focused on first? Well, to help with that, we have our MITRE attack framework, our threat intelligence. So we're taking all of the alerts, all the activity that we're seeing in the network, laying it into the MITRE ICS attack framework to help you prioritize and understand exactly which one of those threats is most likely to be causing problems within my environment. So I would go to my most critical alert, which is indicated by the red dot, farthest to the right, which most likely to be impairing. In this case, it's impair processor, impacting our processor, inhibiting response, and so on. Most likely to be impacting my environment. I can pivot directly in there, and I see this is the alert that I should pivot to, that I should hit first, because this one most likely to have impact on my building, on my facilities, and on my processes and so on running within that environment. So that's one way that we're helping direct your attention directly to where you have issues going on. Another tool that we're using to help understand the threats and where you're most likely to be attacked within your environment, what we call our tailored threat intelligence. And this is where we're taking specific information about your facility. We're taking the types of assets you have, the manufacturers that you have, the software versions that they're running, and so on. And this is all information that we're detecting automatically through deep packet inspection off the network. We're taking that information and we're swizzling that with information that our threat research team gathers about active threat actors in the world that are out actually actively attacking companies today. And we're giving you a relevancy score. So I can take this site. Now, this site happens to be a manufacturing facility is what this actually is. We have some building management stuff in here as well, but we also have a lot of manufacturing. Specifically, it's an oil and gas facility in the United States. And if I look at these, I can see that these are the most relevant threats out in the wild. And if I pivot into this one, let's take this Black Cat RAS group, which is specifically targeting oil and gas companies in Germany and the United States. I can come in here and I can take a look at this. And I see that we have an industry match, we have a country match, we have vendor matches, we have device types, and we have protocols. So let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. I can see here, and I need to move this window out of the way, that I have an industry match. They're attacking oil and gas. I have a target country. I'm based in the United States. The United States is one of the countries that they're targeting. But here's where it starts to get very interesting. Here are the vendors in my environment. In this case, it happens to be VMware that they're targeting. And here are the specific devices that if this threat actor decided to attack my facility, here are the devices they would be looking to attack based on their past behavior. And we can look at specific protocols. If we had specific known vulnerabilities, those would be enumerated under the CVEs as well. So again, giving you direct information on and distilling out that information of here's all the threat actors in the world. Here are the ones who are targeting your kinds of facilities and so on. And here's specifically where they're targeting within that environment and what you can do to help remediate those steps. And taking that a step farther, if we look, as we've identified the assets that are communicating on your network, again, passively through deep packet inspection, so no chance of having any detrimental effect on the devices because we're not actively interrogating them, although that is an option, but that's not the default way of gathering information. But the important thing to look at here is our CVEs per asset. Again, directing you exactly to where we have the highest potential threat, we have what's known as the KEV, so the known exploited vulnerabilities. So within your environment, within this environment, we have two assets with 3 vulnerabilities, the 251 and the 130, that have 3 vulnerabilities. And those 3 vulnerabilities are very critical. The reason they're critical is they are in the KEV database. The KEV database is the known exploited vulnerabilities database. These are vulnerabilities that we know malicious actors have used to exploit other companies. These are your all hands on deck. We need to resolve these CVEs immediately. So again, bringing all of this information to point you to exactly where you should be focusing your attention to help remediate the risk within your individual environment. Now, this was looking at an individual site. If we pivot back to CyberWatch, we have all of this exact same information from an overall perspective. So I can come into my tailored threat intelligence in my cyber watch, my enterprise view now, and I can look at this across the entire board, not just at an individual site. And I apologize, it's taking a little bit to load here. My internet's not the fastest in this facility. But now I can come in and I have all of my 9 sites ranked by priority for each of my individual threats. So again, we have the individual site view for the people working at the site, and then we have the enterprise view for that holistic view across your entire enterprise or across a campus, if we have a campus with multiple buildings and so on. And we can separate this in different ways to view it. So we're looking at all sites, but if I come back to my dashboard here, for instance, and I look at my all sites, I can break this down into regions too. So I could have multiple campuses. Still, I could have a campus view. So here I am just looking at my campus called McCall. Or I can look at all of my environment, or I can look at just an individual just one site if I wanted to, or however the view makes sense to view that. And of course, the dashboards are configurable and customizable and all that. So you can have different views for different roles within your environment and so on. So I know I touched on all that real quick, but I have one other thing I wanted to make sure we get a chance to take a look at before we get to Q&A. And I know we're kind of trying to keep an eye on time here and how much time we have. And the final thing I'm going to touch on here real quick is our governance dashboard. And I'm going to pivot back and we're going to walk through a scenario after we touch on this, just to kind of tie all of this together in a scenario. So this is that governance dashboard that we were talking about, completely customizable. Again, here, and you'll notice we're also multi-language. So you'll notice here, we have the Japanese language being utilized here. We can turn the whole thing Japanese. These are just some Japanese specific versions of our code, but let's just take a look at IEC 62443. You'll notice the dashboard just instantly changed. We can actually look at trends on how we're doing in compliance at each of these specific facilities. So we can see again, is our compliance getting better? Is our compliance deteriorating? And as Eugene pointed out, we can look at the specifics of the environment. So here we are looking at our compliance tracker for, and actually I hit the wrong one here. We can come in and we can look at our tracker. This brings me right into the screen I wanted rather than having to jump through some hoops. And I can look at exactly where we are in compliance for our specific governance model. So in this case, IEC 62443, we can see exactly where we're in compliance, where we're out of compliance. A lot of this is automated. All of the stuff that says events is automated based on information that we're getting off the network. But we understand not everything can be detected automatically. So we also have the idea of questionnaires, having to go out and physically audit stuff and upload data and all that kind of stuff. So we can cover the complete gamut of GRC requirements and so on. And also, as was pointed out, this is also completely customizable so that we can meet your corporate governance as well as tracking for the known frameworks and so on. You can customize those frameworks to meet your requirements. So I know I went through that really quick, but I do want to point out, just go through a quick scenario here. And I'm going to come back to our, actually, it's a little bit quicker for me to do it this way. So I'm just going to come back here and come back to our minor attack framework. And I'm just going to walk through here. We're going to look at identifying a threat. So I'm going to come into unauthorized command. So we're actually able to look down into the commands that are getting sent across the wire, including with BMS protocols like BACnet and some of those other protocols that are common within the BMS environment, and actually look and see what environments are in that being issued and going across the wire. And we can set policy around that. Who can send the commands to who, what time of day, things like that. So I'm going to go in and take a look at this PLC stop command that was issued outside of policy, and I want to understand how that actually happened. So I identified a threat that has a high probability of impacting my environment. I can see all of the details on this, and I want to track this down to understand who did it. And here, if we come down here to our OT traffic, we can actually see the PLC stop command going across from our deep packet inspection. But I'm going to come down here and look at our user activity and actually play back the events that led up to this. So I see coming in here that I had my PLC stop command being sent across the wire here. And let me zoom out here just a little bit to give you a little bit better view. There's our PLC stop command being sent here, right there. And we see that it was sent from .11. So we want to know who is actually responsible for that though. And if I look at this in a little bit more detail, I can see that I had somebody log in here, and the login was ICS Tech. So they had used plain text authentication. I got an alert for the plain text authentication. But in my environment, I have 10 different people who are using ICS Tech. So I can't tell you who was actually doing that because of my poor security hygiene at my particular location. That alert is because we had a plain text authentication. So that's our best practices engine kicking in, looking for depreciated protocols, things like that. But I know that that person who telnetted over here and did the plain text authentication came from IP address 121. So let's see who that user was. Well, that user had come in via RDP. If I can get this window up here, had come in via RDP. RDP uses encrypted authentication. So I can't pull the username out of there because we're just doing deep packet inspection. We're not doing anything tricky here. But he came from .202. Now, this little guy indicates that this 202 is a firewall, a VPN concentrator, something that has authentication happening at the edge, and that I have an integration with, and I'm able to pull that out. So that device is sending me a syslog information, and what it told me was that the gentleman who actually, and it's my system is not responding properly here. My apologies. What that's actually telling me is that that was David M. is who had authenticated there, and I'm not sure why my internet access is giving me some issues here. I apologize for that. But it was actually David M. who had established a VPN connection in here and then established the VPN or established the RDP session and wound up establishing that. So we were able to play back that entire chain of events that led up to that command that was issued outside of policy. So I know I've taken us right up to the edge of our time here, and I apologize for not leaving a lot of time for question and answer. But with that, I will turn it back to Eugene to moderate the Q&A.
Thanks, appreciate that, Carl. We actually do have several interesting questions already in queue, so let me just see if I can pick off the list without. One of them is, do I need special programs to program computer languages? So I'm going to take that to mean, do we require special programming to configure our Cyber Insight system? And to answer that is no. Like I said, there is a device that sits on the network to sniff the network, and by and far the system is configured via configuration settings, not a ton of scripting. But Carl, you might want to expand on
No,
that.
you hit it right on the head. That's one of the differentiators between ourselves and some of the competitors on the market is that you don't have to learn a query language or anything to run the system. It is very simple to use. And we're getting the information out of the protocols going across the wire. We already understand the protocols. We know where to look within the protocols, within the payloads to get the interesting information. So there is no programming required on the side of the customer. If you do happen to have a protocol we don't understand, we can build a parser for that and add it to the system very easily.
And so just explicitly, we know the BACnet protocol, we know Modbus, so our Modbus over Ethernet. So the common building protocols and industrial protocols, I might add in there, we understand those languages, or those communication languages, if you will, and that's how we're able to do the deep packet inspection. You don't have to program it for it to understand that. We've taken care of that. So the next question, do all my sites have to have CyberWatch licenses if I choose to deploy CyberWatch, or can I monitor just a subset of buildings sites with CyberWatch? Great question. And the answer to that is yes. You might have a fleet of 10 buildings, but maybe you really want to have this centralized management over half of them or 3 of them. So you can just buy the connection licenses, the CyberWatch licenses for the facilities that you want to have centralized monitoring on. You don't have to do it across your whole fleet. Do what makes sense for you. Another good question. Typically, how long does it take to deploy on a small site? So typically, I'd say from our experience, it's really just a day, but I say 2 days because there's about a half a day, 4 to 6 hours, depending on how long it will take to configure the network for the span configurations on your network. So there's one part of this loading up the Cyber Insights appliance, configuring it. Another part of that is configuring your network for the span sniffing. And then we want to let that run for a period of time, collect the data, and then we can fine tune it. So typically I'd like to have that, or like to see that run, overnight, 8 to 20 hours overnight. And then we can take a look to make sure, yes, you're getting all good data, it's analyzing properly, do the final tweaks, and you're good. So within a few days, within 2-3 days, you are now getting valued information from the system. You're getting the assets counts, you're getting information about those assets, and you're getting threat reports that are active threat reports on the system. You're not waiting weeks or months. Some of our competitors, you set up the system and it takes 4 to 6 weeks or more before it can develop a baseline and start identifying real threats. We can do that in a few days. I mean, Carl, you might have a other more extended experience than that.
And no, you hit it on the head. The installation of the software is very straightforward and not time consuming at all. The base once the software is installed, the base configuration works. It's just a matter of tweaking, and fine tuning a few things. You don't even have to do that. It's always good to, but time to value is very quick. The majority of the lifting for the installation is understanding the network, understanding where to get the information out of the network, and configuring the network. But even that is very straightforward. It's just a little bit of an effort to understand that.
Oh, great. Here's another good question. Many customers are businesses or school campuses and have fiber. How can these large campuses get info back to Cyber Insights platform server?
So there's a number of different answers to that, and there's we can use protocols like ERSpan or RSpan to backhaul traffic. We can use aggregators like Garland or other TAP aggregator type technology. We also have one of the products that we didn't talk about in here is our remote data collector. So it's a logical extension of the Cyber Insight. So we can collect data from other areas, process the packets locally, and only send metadata back. So there's a lot of different ways to, the system is specifically designed to handle distributed environments. Whether that be large campuses with a lot of stuff spread around, or whether that be power distribution grids and things like that. It's specifically designed to be very effective at handling large distributed environments. And so we just need to, it's a little bit of an engineering function to dive into that exact architecture, but we have solutions that we can accomplish that in a number of different ways.
See, here's another good one. This is a trickier one. I'm going to answer it anyway. It says, assuming we have 24 CNC machines on our OT network, each of these machines have critical parts. Hackers want to steal the geometry of these parts by reverse engineering. Can you help us prevent this? And go ahead, you can answer that. I'll start it, and then you can maybe follow up. So I'd say, yes, we can help you prevent an attack or detect an attack and shut it down right away. In this case, I personally would want to meet with you and look at your exact needs. It's probably going to be a combination of our solutions. Cyber Insights just being one of those, right? To watch, detect the threat that occurred. And then we have other cybersecurity settings, again, looking at firewall settings, overall network settings, that we call a node hardening. It's a holistic view of your network, and then tightening it down to make sure that your IP is not able to be stolen, that no one can break into your system, and that we have good detection if something does happen, so we can shut that down right away. But go ahead, Carl. That's
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. There are absolutely things that we can bring to the table to be one of the pieces of the puzzle to protect that environment. And some of the things that Cyber Insight specifically can bring is some of that policy-based things of who can communicate to who on what protocols and at what time. Some of with CNC, it's a little bit different than other industrial environments because we're really just talking file transfers and things like that rather than a typical industrial protocol that we're looking at. So there's also encryption of the data within the transmission stuff that we need to look at, firewalling, all this other stuff as well. But between the network behavior, using machine learning for network behavior analytics and looking for anomalies within the communications in the environment, from setting policy around who can talk to who on what protocols and things along those lines, there's a lot that we can bring to bear to help protect those kinds of environments.
All right, let's try to take a couple more before we lose the time. But is Honeywell marketing exclusively to hospitals? What about physical security for the buildings you harden? So no, we don't market just to hospitals. I think we just had some examples there. It's all of our buildings customers, from airports, hospitals, utilities, as well as multi-use facilities like malls, our multi-tenant facilities. And we do offer both OT systems from access control, so the physical security, building management systems, lighting control, and optimization, fire life safety. All these OT systems can be monitored or integrated with Cyber Insights. We're watching that, if that was the question. And if you need to know more than that, please feel free to reach out to me. You can set up a meeting to go over more detail on what your needs are and how we can help you. Here's another good one. How do you manage visibility for sites with a lot of layer 2 and or layer 3 network segments? So I think that we kind of tried to cover that already with with that question about how do you manage data across the large campus. But yes, there's a number of ways we can do this by configuring the switches themselves for span traffic, or even dropping down different data aggregators in the remote locations and bringing that data back to the Cyber Insights for analysis. And I guess something that I didn't mention, I didn't actually share an architecture view. We can go over that in a follow on if you want to reach out to us. Is one thing that differentiates us from many of our competitors is we actually do in the remote collectors, we actually do analysis at the remote collector. So when we send information back to the centralized Cyber Insights server, it's a lower overhead. So we have a better capability with lower impact to your overall network for analysis. So I don't know if you want to expand on that, Carl, but or maybe Carl may have had to drop it and we had a hard stop coming up also. So with that, I think we need to start closing out our session. If you need to reach out to us for any reason, you can go out to our website, shown at the bottom of the screen, the external website here, buildingshoneywell.com. There's a slot there. You can review our information. You can also fill out a little form for us to contact you back, or you can reach out to me directly, Eugene Chen at honeywell.com. And I guess that for me, what I say the next steps are is go back within your organization and understand the answers to the critical questions. Again, I've kind of covered those, like, what assets are on the network? What's the posture do you have today? Are you monitoring for your cyber threats? How do you stack up IT versus OT, right? And then start that discussion with your own experts and reach out to us, and we can help fulfill your needs. Thank you, and I appreciate your time for the session today. And we'll be able to make this a recording available to you for a download later on, so you can watch that and share that with your colleagues within your own business. Appreciate your time. Thank you.